Welcome back to the Balance Boldly podcast for ambitious women in business and a few brave men. I'm your host, Naketa Ren Thigpen, always excited to be in the place with you. So listen, as we are easing into what I hope will be a cooler summer for those of us on the East Coast, as well as the West Coast that are experiencing a heat wave at the time of this recording, I am wishing everyone listening to the sound of my voice just the freedom to be aware that you are here, you are in your body, you have this moment, whether you are wrestling with kids, on the treadmill, on your Peloton, or just taking a walk and listening to my voice. I want you to remember that you are here. You are here in your body, and as you will soon find out why, you are liberated to make choices and to do anything that your heart desires with the right team and right support system. So, bringing up my next potent human guest, let me introduce you to Shilpa Alimchandani. Don't you want to just say her name multiple times? Alimchandani. It's like music in my body. She's the founder and principal of Mookti Consulting, a practice that partners with clients to break free from oppressive systems and facilitate transformational change. In Sanskrit, Mookti means liberation, which is why I said, be mindful, be grounded, be aware that you are in your body, you are free, and you are liberated. As a consultant and facilitator, Shilpa partners with mission-driven organizations to build human-centered workplaces. When's the last time you visited a human-centered workplace that wasn't just mission on paper, but was actually embodying it inside their culture? Well, if you visited a few that didn't have it, then you need to connect with Shilpa because this is what she does in her real life. She really helps some people get grounded, get connected, and get their culture together. As a collective liberation coach, Shilpa is helping women of color to lead with purpose and clarity without sacrificing their values or well-being. Shilpa, welcome to the BBP. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me, Naketa. And I love that you started with some grounding in our bodies to really be present in this moment in our bodies and to know that we are indeed free. Yes. We forget that sometimes. There's a lot of reasons we forget that. And it's still true.
Yes.
Right? It's still very true. So I am feeling grateful in this moment is how I'm feeling to be in conversation with you.
No, thank you. And you know, the feeling is mutual. We had so much fun in our green room and our previous conversations that I think we could have probably easily pushed record on either one of those to give insight.
That's probably true.
Right? Yeah. The energy is it's just there. And when you are with someone who you know is grounded and gets it, it's no better feeling. So thank you for being grounded and getting it.
I'm trying.
You're doing. I would love for you to just take a moment and share with everyone why you decided to, birth Mookti Consulting and do all the things that you're doing through the training and the coaching end of your business. I would love for you to just share a little bit of the background of like what inspired you and how this place has grounded you into this new chapter of your life.
Well, yeah. So, for me, it always goes back to my personal journey, which laid the foundation for who I am professionally as well, right? I am the firstborn daughter of immigrant parents. I grew up in the Midwest, so I have all those like oldest sibling, responsible, whatever, traits. But lived very much a life of being an outsider where I grew up. So for me, this idea of understanding our relationships with culture and with power and with identity, those were questions I started asking really, really early in life. And then eventually I found a way to weave that into a career, to be honest. It was really the personal experience of marginalization and confusion that set me up for, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, Naketa. When I was a kid, I was really good at, reading and writing and arguing. I was known, to be
I
a good
like it.
arguer in my household. So I thought maybe law would be a
Mhm.
great place to go. And even when I was in college, took the LSAT exam, had the applications in front of me, but there was something inside of me that was like, but you don't really want to be a lawyer, Shilpa.
Yeah.
That's not actually what you want to do. And I didn't end up applying. I took a different path. And this idea of bridging differences and using kind of my background in social science to explore first, like on a systems and organizational level,
Yeah.
how we can change and shift, but then also on a personal level,
Hmm.
that's come later to me, how we can shift and change and live a more free and, human centered life has been something that's really important to me. So, yeah, how am I here right now with my practice? It's been a journey. Is that's the short answer. It has been a journey, and I'm really, really grateful to be in the place where I am now, where I'm running my own business and getting to make a difference in people's lives.
I love your framing of your story for so many reasons. And part of it is you took ownership for the permission you gave yourself to pivot, to shift, whatever, to recalibrate, right? Like you easily could have glued yourself to an expired expectation. There was a younger version of you that was like, oh, this makes sense. I'm good at debate. I'm good at speaking up. I'm good at advocating. I project well. A lawyer. That makes sense, right? Like
Right.
on paper, it does make sense. And honestly, parts of ingredients for a really good lawyer. But you realize that those ingredients could make something different, even though you didn't know exactly what that was at the time. I think there's a lot of courage and bravery and boldness. This is balance boldly, right? Like there's a lot of boldness in you giving yourself permission to take the unknown path and not be kind of rigidly stuck in and I say expire expectation because I don't know if your parents were kind of suggesting that to you, if your culture was suggesting that to you, or if it was just something that just felt like it would make sense to you that became your own expectation that expired and got rigid. But a lot of us do career paths, maybe multiple chapters of it, where we felt like we had to because someone else said, even our younger self. Our younger self said that
Right.
we were going to do this, so I have to do it, even though it's not really in alignment. And I think you and I were talking about this maybe a month ago or so when we were talking that my formula for balance is admit the truth of what you really want over the boundaries that you're willing to create to achieve that truth as reality. And you said, my truth, it ain't lawyer. That's not
Right.
my truth. And I need to create some boundaries around myself, like not locking myself into an X number of year program and being stuck there and allowing myself to be expansive and give myself some room to figure it out, which is really courageous. And I hope you know that that's a courageous thing to do.
I appreciate you reflecting that back, because I had, I think, a self perception for a long time of being a very like obedient, rule following, responsible daughter, older sister, et cetera, right?
Mm-hmm.
Set the good example,
Yeah.
all those kinds of expectations, deeply internalized, along with, to some degree, a scarcity mindset, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, grew up in an immigrant household, so that feeling of that there's not enough and that you have to work so extremely hard for anything that you have and no guarantee that you get to keep it, right? Like that fear was also
Yeah.
deeply ingrained. A lot of gratitude to my parents for the safety and the life that they provided for me, and just recognizing that some of these mindsets, right, got ingrained. And so the piece around bravery and courage is really interesting for me to reflect on. And I think it comes up a lot in my coaching practice too, because I work with women of color leaders who are so courageous in everything that they've done to get to where they are
Mm-hmm.
in their careers, in their lives. And yet, when we really get into it, I recognize that some of that same fear that I was just talking about is in them too. right? And some of those insecurities and the expired expectations, like you were saying, right? That is kind of a theme that I've discovered. And so it's helpful to hear like actually what you did was brave. And I think we need to help each other to see that because it's hard to recognize in yourself, but like I could recognize it in you and say, Naketa, you are so brave.
Yeah.
You're so courageous for everything you've done and everything you've built. It's easier to give that than to receive it.
That's so true. It's that receive muscle that we often, as givers and healers and helpers, that we're usually deficient in that receive muscle. Like that's the weaker side of our body, so to speak. I'm preaching to the choir here, like, right? Like I've definitely experienced that first partaker. But something else that you said for me stood out as a highlight of why you do such good work is your empathy is extremely heightened when you're working with these women of color leaders and entrepreneurs and founders that are amazing, brilliant, bold, beautiful, courageous, phenomenal, well accomplished. And in parentheses, they're looking for that safe space. They're looking to be heard by someone that they don't have to explain the duality of themselves to, that honors that they can be dope and own that. And also doubt and be brilliant and own that. And also have moments of imbalance and not be judged or have the dope and the brilliance diminished because of those strong, vulnerable moments that they get to, have in that sacred space that you're creating with them and for them.
Oh, I love that both and framing, Naketa, because that's the thing. We kind of convince ourselves that if we're these, strong, brilliant, empowered people, there's no space for that fear and that vulnerability. And of course, that's present too. They're both true. Both things are true.
That's right.
And it's a tension that can be hard to hold.
Yeah.
But if we can presence ourselves in our bodies, like you were saying right now, like this is not just a cognitive exercise, it is a whole body spirit experience, right? Of self-acceptance, that those multiple things are all true at the same time. I don't have to pick. I don't have to choose. I don't have to pretend that some part of me is not there, because it is there.
That's right.
And it's there for a reason. I just need to understand what that reason is.
Yeah.
Is it protecting me? Is it trying to keep me safe from danger? Is it, an expired part of who I am that I need to give a little love to so that I can make space for the person I'm becoming?
That's right.
But to reject any part of ourselves, I think that's where, and deny any part of ourselves, that's where we run into trouble, right? And that has a cumulative effect of where we get kind of dissociated from ourselves because we're just denying that something is true when it is in fact influencing, how we think and how we see the world.
Such a good highlight, because also the disassociation that so many of us do it's survival, right? It's a protective thing that our ego is doing for us. And the challenge is we start to, like anything, even too much water can be dangerous to you, right? Like even the good things can be really dangerous if you overdo it. And if you don't appreciate the power of them, right? The teaspoon of water is like, it's just a teaspoon of water. It's unlikely that I'll choke on it, but go into the ocean and open your mouth like it's a teaspoon of water. There's a likelihood that power is going to overrun you. And I think the same thing happens when we Olympic champions of compartmentalizing start to shift into that constantly. And then we disassociate because it's bubbling up. It's trying to implode because we've stuffed too much crap down there and didn't give it safe space to release and to forgive and do the compassion work and all of it. And now you're disassociating without your permission. Now it's happening when you didn't want it to happen. You're trying to have a quality moment with, I don't know, a kid, a grandkid, a neighbor, your student, or you're in a situation where you're trying to be present for a girlfriend that's having a hard time, or you're with your husband and you're supposed to be intimate and your mind just completely took you somewhere else. Right. Those unsolicited, disruptive, disassociative moments they can become so dangerous because we've allowed ourselves to not recognize the power of that survival skill when the survival skill is out of place. You don't need to survive every moment. And if you're in a situation where that's happening to you, as I know it is for many of your clients, as it is for mine, where you're burnt out, you're overwhelmed, you're overextended, like all the things, and your whole nervous system feels like it's under attack, those things can start to turn on you in a way that makes you truly feel out of control. And for type A folk who are potentially reformed perfectionists and, whatever other title you might be rocking, hint, hint, talking to myself, when that happens, the worst thing in the world is to lose control, especially if someone who felt like you didn't have control at maybe a younger version of yourself and have done everything in your power to get it back. So I love that. I just wanted to highlight that point that you made because it was really powerful.
And it becomes habitual, like you said, where those protectors are showing up when we don't need them. The dissociation is disconnecting us from relationships that are really important to us. We may not even realize. For me, being a parent, being a mother has highlighted that in so many ways.
Yeah.
Where, and I've been through therapy and coaching myself. So I believe in the medicine, right?
Amen.
I take it myself. I'm not just giving it. And like to get to a place of like noticing like, whoa, I completely checked out there.
Yeah.
Right. Out of self-preservation. There's some argument happening between my children or something was going on. I felt triggered and I checked out. Right. And I had to step away. And then when the child comes up to say, Mommy, are you okay? To sometimes say, you know what? I'm not feeling okay right now.
Yeah.
I need a minute.
Yeah.
It took me a while to believe that was okay to do. Right. And I think for a long time, I thought that's like burdening my child with my stuff and I don't want to do that. And then I think what got to me was realizing, the example we're setting through our own choices and our own behavior.
Come on.
Right. So if she sees mommy, if my daughter sees mommy as superwoman who never has a bad day, what message am I sending her about herself when she has a bad day?
That's right.
What is she learning from me? And that is what kind of woke me up to like, oh, you can't be pretending, right? You have to be real. And that's what's going to make our kids strong. You're a human being. They're human beings. And they have their highs and their lows. And then they see mommy does too. Like, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, take some vulnerability. I still have a hard time, with that. I'm not pretending like, I found some magic solution to some of this. But it really did help to think again from what is the example I'm setting? And if we want to be human-centered anywhere, in our workplaces, in our homes, right, we've got to model it.
That's right. I tell people all the time, I work with a lot of power couples as well as the founders separately who are typically in relationship and the partner's not quite ready to do the power couple work yet, or maybe they're readying themselves with their future power couple, positioning. But that comes up so much in the parenting. Like, I'm trying to keep this from them. I'm like, no. There's some things that are absolutely inappropriate for children to be around, period, full stop, right? Some conversations, some versions of yourself that you need to work out and not show them that. Correct. Because they need to be introduced to the healed version of you, or the healing versus the one that's just, wilding out and giving yourself permission by saying things like, well, that's just who I am. Because that's like the worst thing you can do. That's like saying, I already know, when, we all are here to learn, right? Like all of it. But arguing in front of your kids, showing them how to handle a conflict, how to break up with a friend who is not healthy for you anymore, without calling the friend bad, without making the friend bad.
Right.
All of those things are really good in developmental proportion to their age and all of it. So they can see the humanness in you. And in seeing the humanness, to your point, there are lessons that are being ingrained in their core memory from that experience that they will be able to draw from, like water when they are in the desert. It will come to them, maybe not at 15 when they're running off at the mouth and it didn't come back yet. The hormones is there, but when they are 25, when they are
Yeah.
32, when they are experiencing deep grief or realizing that they've been tolerating something and they're not really even sure how they got there, it will come to them like divine intervention because you have planted the seed with the strength in your vulnerability. And I think that is so powerful and so important. And to your point, too, Shilpa, we don't need to have all the answers. That's why we take the medicine that we get from other doctors. Like, yes, physician, you are some things you should do preventatively because you just know better, but you should not be trying to heal thyself. Go to another
Right.
physician, the other coach, the other mentor, the other advisor, the therapist, all of the above, like whatever it is that you,
Seriously.
and not just be okay with it, but honor the privilege in it, the privilege to hire someone, to pay them for their services, to help you be a better you. It's, I mean, talk about mukti, right? Like liberation, like it is.
That's what liberation looks like. Yeah.
Ugh.
To prioritize yourself, right?
That's right.
Because
That's right.
everybody has, we have sort of different amount of resources, but like where we decide to put those resources and what we decide to invest in. And I see it as an investment
Come
in
on.
myself, right? As a human, as a parent, as a partner, as a daughter, as a sister, as a friend, as a professional, right? I'm investing in myself, and that's then how I'm able to give and share my gifts. And that's what I see in all of my clients too, with people with just incredible gifts, some of which they aren't able to fully give because we're trapped in some old patterns and we have a really hard time finding it within ourselves to hold the complexity we were talking about earlier and make space
Yeah.
for and have compassion for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right, that self-compassion piece is ongoing.
Huge.
It is huge, but I see that as a theme as well with anyone that I work with. Where is the compassion for self?
Yeah. It's usually the most accomplished of us that struggle with that the most. It's
Indeed.
almost like you feel like, and maybe it's unconscious, it's not always a conscious thought, but you feel like, how dare you? How dare you complain? How dare you feel like you need to be compassionate? How dare, right? Get it together. Is what is the trope? The one who wears the crown, heavy is the head that wears the crown, or where much is given, there's much responsibility. Some versions
Yeah,
of
yeah. Oh,
those.
like the even what is it? Is it with much power comes much responsibility? Isn't that like a Spider-Man?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
With great
and
power comes great
great,
responsibility.
yes, I love that. Great power comes great responsibility. And yes, those things are true. Like with
Yeah,
a lot of money, I'm responsible to be philanthropic, right? Like with a lot of energy, I'm responsible to support people who don't have as much because they can't
right.
do as much as fast and as resource as I can. And I wasn't even just talking about money, but just physical resources. Like if you've
Mm-hmm.
ever lost your ability to walk for a little bit, like after the birth of a baby, or
Yeah,
you lose muscle weakness and your hand, it is a huge difference to not have full capacity if you
absolutely.
had experienced full capacity prior to that versus not having experienced it, and the way that you learn your body is within its capability. I want to be careful not to say limitation, but within its capability. And then to
Right.
lose any aspect of that, it can be devastating. I know I turn into a full grown baby if I can't do what I need. I'm like, body, get it together. And I had to start learning, all right, also, when there's nothing wrong, body, thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Yes.
supporting me, right?
And not to take it for granted.
Not to take it for granted, because we all do all the time. And then
Mm-hmm.
we kind of get stuck in a cycle of guilt over the how dare you, again with the power. And I think
Right.
sometimes this is what slows us down from really doing the self-forgiveness work, the self-compassion work, the inner child work, like you're
Oh,
whining. That
yes.
was back then. That was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I'm like, it could be 80 years ago. She is crying and she is loud and she's in my ears, not yours. So I need to give her
Yeah,
some attention.
that's
In
right.
my case, her. But I love the work that you're doing because it was one, it's very in aligned. So I'm biased, right? Like we're in so much alignment there, but also because we need more of us that are willing to be bold and courageous enough to make space for the sacred spaces. Cause it's tough on us. We have to have our
Yeah,
own counsel and advisors and teams to make sure that we are not absorbing what we're receiving and making it our story and making
right.
it our pain. And pain is infectious. Somebody screaming in pain, you feel it too. Oh, right? Like you
Yeah,
feel it and it's hurting. And you have to be really careful because many of us will then project it onto the people that we are doing the work for, right? Like project it back on our family and make them feel bad that we have to work when it's actually work we want to do. So I
hmm.
really appreciate what you're doing and how you're showing up and why Mookti Consulting is so important organizationally as well as individually. It matters, Shilpa. You matter, and your work really needs a bigger stage. It needs more space.
Oh, thank you for saying that so much. Nikita, I feel seen by
I mean
you,
it. I mean it.
truly. I know that you're incredibly genuine. And when I think about, the workplace context, how this shows up, we've got, these amazing leaders who are under extreme pressure, sometimes put in a glass cliff kind of situation,
Yeah.
coming in to clean up a mess that somebody else made, right? And all of the pressure and all the judgment is
Mm-hmm.
being directed towards them. It's impossible to please everyone, nor should that even be our goal, to please everyone. But that is hard.
Yeah.
It is really, really hard to move through that. And so, if I can partner with women on this journey as they are within these, multiple systems of oppression that we operate in, find their voice and get really clear on the difference that they want to make, not give up their well-being, not give up their values in the
Yeah.
process, then I consider myself successful. That's what I want to do, and I think that will have a much greater impact than anything I do individually. Right? Is impacting the lives of these women.
Yeah, it's the ripple. And like as
Yeah.
you're painting the picture of what you are doing as well as what you're moving into, I can just see the ripple going across the water. And those
Yeah.
ripples of transformation, of wholeness, of healing, they will matter for so many multiple generations that outlive your kids. And
Mm.
that is where I think, as impact workers, as mission driven visionaries who are here for something greater than the money matters, the money is important, the money is a tool, but it's
Yeah.
not the driver. For people like
Yeah.
us, it's it is the payback, right? Like it is the impact in and the imprint from the impact is really the pay. And I appreciate you because I see that you really are true to this, that you really are doing the work, that this isn't just talk. And you're honoring where you are in your growth cycle too, and giving yourself that spaciousness to evolve, which is also really important. So thank you for showing up so fully.
Thank you, Nikita. Truly. I'm glad that there are, I think, many of us on this journey together. It's so important to not feel alone. And I really appreciate this opportunity to be with you.
Oh, me too. Stop it. So I have to ask you because I asked the signature question, like the only two scripted questions I have. And the first,
Okay.
with all that you're doing, all the work organizationally, individually, and then of course the work that you have made space for yourself with your own advisory teams and such, how are you giving yourself permission to pause?
Hmm. I know. And you gave this question to me ahead of time, and I was reflecting on it. I have a daily yoga practice,
Mhm.
which is really, it's not even very long, but whatever it is, it's every morning, which gives me that moment to pause and to be really in my body too, not just in my head. And I'll share with you, just a couple of days ago, I kind of re-injured like part of my rib, like midsection, and I haven't been able to practice yoga the last couple of days. And I was feeling that, oh, like really, really missing it. And so this morning when I woke up, I was like, okay, I can't do certain poses or stretches. I need to go for a walk.
Yep.
And I just changed my clothes and walked out the door, and I felt so much better. So for me, it is being in my body, is how I give myself that permission to pause. And I have to learn to be a little bit more flexible, because I got a little paralyzed when all of a sudden for a couple of days I couldn't do what I was used to. There's always something else, right?
No, I love that you receive the message from your higher self that it's okay and maybe even time to shake things up in the way that you ground, because, you know, our brains are super smart. They're freaking libraries back there, like little machines. So it's like, oh yeah, this is working until it's not working. And I need you to create some space. So that little sore injury that you had that made you kind of give pause to your ritual that you were getting so ingrained in, it was almost like autopilot. It wasn't serving you as well as it could, because it became a dependency. And I appreciate that you heard your higher self like, wait a minute, I need to do something. And you did it, and you shook it up. And when you get back into flow with your yoga practice, your ministry within it, it will feel so much better. And it'll be so much more powerful because of it, which I appreciate that you listened, because you could have ignored it and been sulking, and your perspective would have completely shifted.
Well, I had a couple of days of sulking, but yes, I got on the other side of that.
and that's powerful too, right? Like to see like, well, what happens if I don't listen right away? And even that lesson will prepare you for the next one. So you'll get there a lot faster with maybe, I don't know, a half a day of sulking versus 2 days of sulking, right?
Right.
That's so powerful.
I love that.
So Shilpa, how can people connect with you and find out more about Mookti Consulting?
Sure. Probably the best way is through my website, which is Mookti, Mookti consulting.com. And like I said earlier, and you shared with the group, Mookti means liberation. I'm about our collective liberation. We're seeking this freedom in community with each other. So whether it's for your organization or for yourself individually that you're looking for some support and guidance, I'd love to work with you.
Yeah, I love that so much. Do you have anything exciting coming up in, let's say, the next 6 to 12 months that's on the horizon that you want to give everyone a sneak peek to? Or are you keeping it close to the chest?
I don't have anything fully baked, but what I will say is that I'm really interested in doing some work with groups. Love the one-on-one coaching and connection, but again, collective liberation. If we can be together in a small group of women of color leaders who are looking for that kind of support and understanding, that's something I'd really love to facilitate.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually have an idea. I'll save it for off-air conversation when we, disconnect from this podcast. So
great.
Make sure you hold me to that. Like, what was that, Naketa?
I will, I promise.
Thank you so much for carving out time out of your day, out of your schedule, with social calendars and camp calendars and all the things that you're doing, and being also in the sandwich generation with your parents, and the layers, honey. All the things, the layers that you're rocking under your head. Thank you for just, having a moment to be fully present with me, as I know you were in this conversation. And I know our listeners appreciate it.
So grateful, Naketa. Thank you.
Thank you. Balance Boldly listeners, as always, I know I just keep taking credit for these amazing, potent humans that we keep attracting into us. I hope you appreciate them too. If you are new to the BBP, I have 2 very bold, because this is Balance Boldly, bold ask of you. The first is to think of one person minimally that absolutely can learn, heal, thrive from Shilpa's story. Just share this episode with at least one person. It matters. Do not give context. Do not put your flavor on top of it. Just, I heard this today, thought of you, thought it was dope. Take a listen. Whatever framing that's kind of neutral for you, do that. Don't get into oversharing why you thought it was important for them to listen to different parts, because then people can kind of shy away from maybe some of the medicine that they need as well. And I do really feel like this was such a powerful episode, biased as I am. So make sure you share it with at least one person. That is my first ask. And my second, take a deep breath. And I want you to go and enjoy the balance of your day. But remember, do it boldly.